Hi everyone, I'm Marbozir and welcome to a brand new Civilization 5 series where I'm joined by Quill18.
Hey folks, how's it going?
And we will be discussing high-level Civilization 5 strategies, what it takes to move up from lower difficulty level to higher difficulty level, and we will also be discussing various civilizations as we go.
Well, you're going to be discussing high-level strategy. I'm going to be asking a lot of really stupid questions and making you look really smart when you tell me the answers because you're so much better at this game than I am.
So the main point of this series is to really cover what it takes to move up from lower difficulty level to higher difficulty level, what are the differences, what to expect. So if you are a Deity expert, then a lot of things that we will discuss might be a little bit obvious to you, but if you're not, then hopefully we will cover a few interesting things.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that catches a lot of people off guard is how you can't pursue a lot of wonders, and you have to be so much more focused. And you also have to be ready for massive, massive AI invasions. They can put out so many troops, and it's frightening.
Yeah, and really the main difference, the biggest difference between Deity and Immortal and all the other difficulty levels is that it's a change of game design, really. Because on Deity and Immortal, what you're doing is catching up to the AI. You start behind by design, and you have to catch up. That's the single biggest difference, and it often changes a lot of the strategies that you have to consider.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. You're right. You're always fighting from behind. You'll almost never be in a situation where you're ahead in score until the very end of the game, if even then. Like, you might win without a superior score quite often, and certainly at the beginning of the game. Because what does the AI start with on Deity? Certainly more military units. They start with the second settler right away?
Yeah, they start with second settler, and they also get some technologies for free right at the start. That's one of the reasons why there are wonders that are literally impossible to get on Deity. Like, the best example is the Great Library, because the AI starts with pottery and often just gets writing right away, and they build the library, the Great Library, as the first thing they do. So it's often gone on like turn 30, 35 on Deity. It's just impossible to get it that fast as a human player.
Now, in your experience, what kind of wonders would you go for in Deity, or are possible? I mean, maybe the ones that are unlocked with the social policy would be a good example.
There are a few useful early game wonders that are possible to get. One of the good ones is Stonehenge. It's still not easy to get it, but the extra faith boost can actually help you get your own religion, which can be pretty damn hard on Deity. And calendar is often a technology that you go for first anyway, because you need it for the plantations. It's still not easy to get it. It sometimes involves having to chop a few forest tiles just to speed up the production. But it's possible. I built it before on Deity.
And you'd certainly be building it before you expanded, before you built the settler, I'm sure.
Yeah, for
you'd
sure.
have to beeline it, yeah.
Definitely. There are some really, really powerful early game wonders that are possible to get, but very hard. Like the Temple of Artemis is easily one of the best early game wonders for the entire game, and I managed to get it once or twice on Deity, but it's really, really hard to build. And I think it's worth stopping at Temple of Artemis for a second, because there's something that many people don't realize, I think, and it's that Temple of Artemis, the bonus you get, the growth bonus in it, is different from pretty much all the other growth bonuses in the game, because it applies to total food. And all the other bonuses, like let's say tradition growth bonuses, only apply to excess food. Temple of Artemis and I believe Floating Gardens, the Aztec unique building, are the only two cases of growth modifiers that apply to total food, as opposed to just excess food. It's easily one of the most powerful wonders, I find.
Now, what do you mean by excess food with your landed elite? So that 10% bonus from it, landed elite, only applies to food beyond the sustenance level of your city?
Yeah, exactly. Most growth modifiers only apply to excess food. Temple of Artemis...
Whoa, that's news to me.
Yeah, that's exactly the case. And Temple of Artemis is one of the few exceptions to that rule. It applies to all food, so it's really, really damn powerful.
Now, there's absolutely nothing in the actual Civilopedia that implies that either way.
Yeah, that's true.
So I guess people just figure that out by checking the files and doing tests.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, the tradition, the wording on some of the bonuses there is really unclear, because it often mentions... Hold on, let me check the tooltips. It says plus 10% growth on landed elite, for example. And sometimes it says growth rate, which would imply this is different, but it really isn't. I think it says growth rate on one of the Pantheons, but it says growth on Land and Elite, but they both do exactly the same thing. I tested it a while back.
Yeah, I think, is it Swords in the Plowshares? No. Or one of the others. I know what you're saying. I've seen that phrase before. I just can't remember where it is.
I don't remember the exact name, but the growth Pantheon. I think that's Sword into Plowshares, actually.
I think so. I guess we'll find out once we hit a Pantheon in this game here.
So, in fact, the Temple of Artemis is a wonder that can maybe even win the game for you. Because in the late game, Temple of Artemis can be worth 8 to 10 cargo ships worth of food. It can be equivalent of over 8 cargo ships easily.
Right, it's going to let you grow your cities extremely tall.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right into the... Now, what would you have to do to get that? Would you be trying your Liberty opener, or is there another... Well, no, it'd be too early for Liberty. You can't get your great person out of that. So you'd have to just build it the hard way.
Yeah, you would just have to probably chop a lot of forests, really, and have a high production start and marble. Because if you want to get early game wonders, you pretty much have to have marble. Maybe it's not a strict requirement, but the bonus to early wonder construction from marble is extremely important to getting early game wonders on Deity.
So what would you do in that case? Would you beeline masonry, build one worker, then pick up archery and start building that right away? Or would you still pick up things like pottery?
I would start from pottery and then research archery right away. I usually research archery very early on Deity anyway, because you often just need that extra archer or two. If only to deal with some barbarians. I often just buy an archer for gold.
Because so you don't interrupt your production. I see.
Yeah.
200
because
gold.
He's actually pretty cheap.
A couple of goody huts is usually all you need for that. All right, excellent.
And speaking of wonders, the best way to actually get wonders in the early game that I find
to steal them?
is to take cities from the AI. In fact, one of the best ways to win on Immortal or Deity overall, details of the exact strategy aside, but one of the best ways to win is to take a capital city from an AI that's spamming a lot of wonders. If you can manage to take a city from the AI with a lot of wonders, that one move can actually win the game for you. Because from that point, you can just bunker up and go for scientific victory, for example.
Well, what you're doing there is you're turning the AI's benefit to your benefit instead.
Yeah, exactly.
All kinds of extra production and science bonuses, and they're going to be able to get these things, whereas it's impossible for you to do that.
Exactly.
And they'll also have more units, but you can play much more tactically and beat them in open combat relatively easily. I find 2 to 3 times an army size is not really a challenge, assuming you've got the terrain on your side.
And this actually works really well, because what often happens is that you get 2 or maybe 3 AIs that spam a lot of wonders, and all the other AIs have nothing. That happens in a lot of my games.
Oh, yeah.
So you have these capital cities with massive amounts of wonders.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed. My current game where I'm recording as Immortal, my nearest neighbor, my only neighbor, Poland, built 0 wonders.
Yeah.
Very upset. Like, are you kidding me? Oh, well. Still going all right. So what we've done here is we may be doing a sort of an alphabetical progression through the civilizations. You started with Al-Mansur? What was his name? Well, Morocco.
Yeah. I'm not going to even try pronouncing his actual name.
Guy who starts with an A, and I'm playing girl who starts with a W, Wu Zhitan of China, who I've never played before. I've dabbled with Morocco.
I actually love China.
Yeah?
I actually love China because their unique unit, the Chukonu or whatever it's called, gets an extra attack. So it starts with the, what is that promotion called? The extra attack promotion. And that gives you double the normal experience. So you can get experience at much higher rate on that unit. So it's very, very easy to get +1 range on top of that, and then you can have massively powerful Gatling guns and machine guns in the late game.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that you got experience on every shot and that it would apply to this.
Yeah, exactly. So 2 attacks per turn directly translate into double experience.
And now, is that the only difference between the base unit to the crossbows? You just got the double firing, I assume?
Yeah, I think that's the only difference, but that's definitely the biggest difference.
Their range combat is 14 instead of 18. Their range combat is actually lower, but it doesn't matter because it's ranged.
Yeah.
If it was a melee unit, then that would be terrible.
That's actually how a lot of units in the game work. The bonuses that the unique units get are actual promotions. So I find that some people sometimes underestimate some unique units, Because, for example, there are a lot of unique units in the game that start the game with, let's say, drill promotion, drill 1, for example. The American unique unit is a good example of that, the bomber. It starts with Siege 1 promotion, I believe, or whatever it's called, the extra strength against cities. It starts with that promotion, so if you build it in a city with armory, you can get 2 more promotions on top of that, and it's very, very easy.
It's a promotion that's free and doesn't increase the XP cost of follow-up promotions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what makes them so good. You can immediately get, let's say, drill 3 on a unit that starts with drill 1, if you build it in a city with armory. And it makes it much easier to get some of the more powerful promotions. It's very easy to get air repair on the American unique bomber, for example. That's one of the reasons why it's so good. And air repair lets you repair even if you attack on the same turn.
Yeah, that is really strong.
So I actually see that we have really good starting locations. This is like the perfect case scenario, a starting location next to a mountain and a river at the same time. Because observatories are so important on Deity.
Now, do observatories, don't you have to be directly adjacent, or is it 2 tiles away?
Fine? You have to be directly adjacent.
That's what I thought. It's just the 2 wonders, what is Machu Picchu and the castle that can be within 2.
Yep, Neuschwanstein. One of my favorite wonders in the game, I have to say.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
now, would
awesome.
you move in this case? Would you move your settler?
Probably not. I usually move if I have either a really awful location or if I can see that I can move and then get a mountain, for example.
Right, so in this case, your capital is not going to get the mountain, but are you talking about potentially settling just maybe northeast of the mountain for your second city?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't move here.
Okay, because, yeah.
I mean,
now, I used to very consistently move on top of hills for the extra hammer.
But on the other hand, there's no reason to be like afraid of moving, because I know this is actually something somewhat controversial. Some people believe that you should always just settle on spots, others tend to move a lot. There's no reason to be afraid of moving. Losing a few turns is nothing compared to getting a clearly superior city location.
Although a lot of that does depend on what speed you're playing on. If you're playing on the very, very slow speed, if you're playing on epic, then moving becomes much less painful.
Sure.
But if you're ever playing on quick, you'd never do it.
Yeah, but it's definitely worth moving for a few things. It's worth moving to get a mountain. It's worth moving to get a river if you don't have one, because that's plus 25% share income. And it's definitely worth moving to get a coastal city if your original location is not coastal. Just for the cargo ships. Cargo ships are so much better than caravans for gold.
Now, it doesn't look like I have any option of being coastal. Moving next to the mountain doesn't seem like it would make much sense either, because it would be leaving the river. So I think I'm going to be settling in place as well.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And that means you will settle on top of a hill, which is a nice combat bonus for the city. That can actually matter.
I'm on flatland. I'm next to a hill, but I'm on flatland.
Are you? The tile your settler is on is a hill. It's a grassland hill, river, fresh water.
No, jungle, river, fresh water. No hill. I'm pretty sure. I mean, that's what my pop-up is saying.
Interesting. Do we actually see the exact same thing? Well, I had some desync errors in multiplayer sometimes. I hope that's not the case here. Okay, I see you. No, it's fine.
Okay, yeah, that was just weird.
Right, yeah, that was odd. I'm going to settle on spot too. But settling on top of a hill can be quite useful if you're right next to someone really aggressive. Because that hill bonus combined with the tradition garrison bonus can allow you to defend the city much easier.
Yeah, it's really, really potent. Also, it helps that any archers that you have settled or defended in your city can usually shoot a little bit further away. Because your cities can always shoot at range 2 regardless of what obstacles are in the way, but your ranged units would have line of sight issues, especially here in the forest. It would actually be quite nice if Beijing was on a hill.
For sure. Also, there's one thing that we should probably mention so that people are not confused. We are actually playing with a modified UI. It's enhanced user interface. We'll have a link somewhere in the description below. This is not the default interface.
Yeah, so the tooltips will be different. That's really the only difference. None of the gameplay is altered in any way whatsoever.
And it's not technically a mod, which is why it works in multiplayer.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like a DLC, I don't know.
Yeah. So, I'm going to start from a scout, which is pretty much what I always do.
That is very standard. And the reason for that is the goodie huts and just being able to see the terrain.
Do you actually ever hard build a monument? Because I usually don't. I find that it's usually not worth wasting production time for it.
Really? See, I always go scout monument.
Yeah,
so you
I
go
usually,
what, scout?
Scout worker. What I usually do lately is finish my scout, get started on a worker, and then switch to a shrine the moment pottery is done. And then finish my worker after that.
And then you buy your monument whenever you get 280 gold?
No, I just get the monument either from ruins or just from the +1 culture. I usually go for tradition, so as soon as I have the tradition opener, I get the extra culture. So then I get the monument.
Oh, you get the monument for free, of course.
Yeah, through legalism. Yeah. But even the tradition opener gives you +3 culture, so as soon as I get my opener, I get +4 culture per turn, even without monument. So that's my reasoning why I usually don't build it. Sometimes I get lucky and get like +3 culture from a ruin, which is fairly common. So then it's obviously totally irrelevant, because I get +4 culture per turn very quickly. But even if I don't get the culture, it's usually fine. And you can't really rely on, but there's another thing that we should probably discuss, which is worker stealing. I find that this is also something slightly controversial. Some people believe that it's very cheesy. Some people believe... What? Is the game reloading?
Something weird just happened because I was seeing Spanish workers and warriors in your empire.
Okay.
So I'm thinking there was some sort of massive desync here.
Okay, I seem to be fine.
Wow, I am so not fine.
Okay, yeah.
It just reloaded my game. I'm now in a different area altogether. I've got my borders on top of a grassland hill river, but there's no actual city.
Yeah, I don't see your actual city.
I think.
Okay, this was a desync error.
I should think so. So I guess we'll restart this one. I mean, the conversation was all good, but
yeah,
I guess
the conversation was great.
we'll have another start. We can showcase a different, potentially a different opening.
All right, we're back after a desync. We had to start a new game, but we have a workaround that will hopefully work. We will not settle our cities on the first turn, or on turn 0 in this case.
Yeah. Well, we're only playing Deity. We have to make sure the AI's got a little bit more of an advantage.
We have to give the AI an advantage. It clearly needs it. So this is actually a case where I would consider moving, because I can get a coastal city next to a river. And that's usually worth a lot more money.
So you would go and settle just to the southwest of the copper, maybe?
Yeah. I would settle on the coast next to a river, because then I have a city that can use cargo ships with plus 25% trade income from the river.
So I think I would be settling in place, although I won't be settling this turn, since we're trying to avoid that glitch. So next turn there. I like this. There's a lot of resources around here.
And this is actually a pretty good start, because I have 2 tiles with wheat. And that's pretty nice with the granary.
You're going to have crazy food. And I really do like the sea tiles when you've got your lighthouse. It produces quite a bit.
Yeah, they are really good.
All right, here we go. Beijing has been
I do hope this workaround will actually work. But it should.
Although, weren't we desyncing even before we settled last time? Because your tooltip wasn't matching my tooltip. So I'm thinking, like, last time around, the game was screwed right from the beginning.
Yeah, it's possible. Alright, so... Same as before. I start from a scout.
Now, what we should probably do as well is go through exactly what your characteristic, what are your unique abilities and unique units, and how's that going to affect your play as Morocco?
Right.
Because you've got some pretty good stuff, if I recall.
The main thing about Morocco is that they get extra gold and culture for every trade route with a different city-state or different civilization.
You have to really spread them out. If you send 2 to the same place, the second one won't get the benefit.
So you'd want to spread it out as much as possible, preferably to as many AIs as possible, as many other civilizations, because these trade routes are usually worth more than city-states. However, it doesn't always make sense to spread them out that much, because what often happens in games is that you have that one civilization or one city that belongs to the AI that you can get massive gold from.
Yeah, so if you're talking about a 25 gold per turn versus an 8 gold per turn city-state, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah. But it's definitely nice for some extra income. Especially when you have a lot of quests from city-states that you might want to do one way or the other. For plus 40 influence, I believe, when you send a trader out to city-state. Then this is really nice. I very often take advantage of these quests, so Morocco works really nice with that.
Now, with Morocco, I think it's very tempting and it's kind of a trap to go and try to settle in a desert area right away. Although I guess you could colonize a desert spot that doesn't need to work the desert for a while, like if it's got a lot of natural resources and that sort of thing. Because the Casbahs are really nice, but mostly what they make is they turn deserts from being garbage tiles to being tiles that are acceptable.
Yeah, the Casbah is almost like a mini Petra. It's even more tempting to go for Petra's Morocco because I do believe it stacks with Petra.
It definitely does. I think there's a couple of tiles they don't match up on, like I'm trying to think. The Petras don't work on floodplains.
Yeah, they don't work on floodplains and something else. I guess I can check it. Petra.
But I don't remember if the Casbah has the exact same requirements, because you might be able to build the
floodplains. Okay, the encyclopedia only says except floodplains, so I guess it's just that.
Okay, and the question is, the Casbah, I think, can be built maybe only on desert tiles. I mean, if you can build them on floodplains, which I'm not sure that you can, then it would be pretty overpowered, I guess.
I'm actually not sure.
Ooh, I got 100 gold. And the Civilopedia just says desert, but I don't remember if floodplain is a modifier on top of his desert or a special tile in and of itself.
Well, the thing is, would you really want to build a Casbah on a desert tile? Because I would go with a farm.
On a floodplains, yeah.
But Morocco is one of the civilizations that I would actually maybe consider using Liberty Opener with on Deity. I usually don't go for Liberty Opener because tradition is so much better, but if you have a good location for Petra, then it might be worth the risk of going for a Great Engineer from Liberty Finisher to use for Petra.
Now, is there a possibility you might do something like, well, if I get culture from a goody hut, then I will do the Liberty thing? Because you really, you do have to complete the tree. And the timing on that can be kind of difficult.
Sure.
Because I agree, like, Liberty just works on everything. It doesn't matter what your strategy is.
And you also have to get currency. That's something to keep in mind. Because the thing about Deity is you really can't deviate a lot from, like, optimal tech route. It usually involves going for education as soon as possible and getting universities. Yeah.
Now, also, getting your national college. I've heard the rule of thumb is on standard speed, you ideally want to get that in place by turn 100. But what does that mean in terms of number of cities? Do you get 2 extra cities? So you've got a 3 count, get the libraries up and do that? Or how do you usually work that?
I usually don't start more than 3, maybe 4 cities. And what I often do is that if I have a location that I really want to settle before I build National College, I save up gold to just flat out buy a library in that city.
Yeah, I usually do that for the final city as well.
It's not always possible, but it's what I do quite often. I usually try to get the National College between turn 100-150. At least on standard speed. It's possible to get it before turn 100, but it's also not a big deal if it's delayed slightly.
Well, especially if you're achieving something else.
Yeah, for sure. I had games that I won that I had very late National College. It's not game breaking if you get it 20 turns later or 30 turns later.
Hey, in multiplayer, you don't get a pop-up when you meet a city-state? So I don't know if I got 15 gold or 30 gold from meeting Kaisel. That's kind of annoying because I use that as a hint to say, hey, is there anyone nearby?
Yeah. There are actually quite a few pop-ups that are missing in multiplayer. When you get a technology from a goody hut, you also don't get a pop-up. I got Animal Husbandry and I didn't get a pop-up for that.
You got, come on, I can't believe the game's giving you text. So apparently I'm next to Byzantium. I also didn't get a pop-up for meeting her. Oh, there's no cutscene either when you go into chat.
Yeah, there isn't.
Oh, that's very interesting. So I'm going to try your start where I build a worker second. Now, how much do you have to protect that worker on Deity? because there's nothing I hate more than having a barbarian come over and just mess up my day. Like, do you recall your warrior quite early, or?
You definitely need to be careful. What I usually do is, if I see a barbarian heading my way, I just buy an archer. That's pretty much what I do, and protect that worker with an archer.
Right, right.
This is the reason why I often research archery very early, so I can actually buy that archer.
Mm-hmm. So it looks like I'm going to be picking up potentially masonry pretty early.
Oh yeah, because you have marble.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if that marble is really going to lead to me building a wonder, though. Now, if you did see marble like this, would you be like, okay, am I going to go crazy? Am I going to go for the Temple of Artemis? I mean, you're already getting archery second.
Probably not. If you had more forest around you, then I would maybe consider that.
Right, because without being able to chop, there's very likely I'm not going to be able to win that race.
It's a very, very hard wonder to get. AI usually likes it a lot.
Now, of course, none of this applies if you're at lower difficulty, especially something like Prince and below. Then you can pretty much get any wonder you want.
Yeah, for sure. If you have marble on lower difficulty, then it's pretty easy to get almost any wonder you want.
Now, I could potentially steal Byzantium's worker.
One thing that you might want to get if you go for very early wonders is early aristocracy. Assuming traditional opener, obviously.
Oh, yeah. The 15% boost?
Yeah, that works really nicely combined with marble. I usually don't get it until after landed elite. I only really get it for National College, right before National College.
Yeah, I usually prioritize landed elite. That extra food, even ignore the 10%, just having the extra +2 food in your capital is
exactly.
Really
it's
amazing.
very helpful. I usually wait to get pop 4 before I start recruiting my first settler in my capital city.
Yeah, just so that you can be working more high production tiles, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I usually try to grow my cities as much as possible. I had people say that I'm a little bit too upset with city growth on some of my videos, but you really have to be on Deity. You need to get that population.
People always criticize me that I don't have enough city growth, that my capital is mid-sized for far too long.
Because really, more population is more everything, pretty much.
It really is.
More science, more production, more culture, more everything.
But yeah, more of everything. Now, if you take a look at my scout here, there's a possibility of snagging a worker from Byzantium. Now, I've never done anything like that before, and it seems like it would be kind of a crazy risk because there's a good chance I just get shot while pulling it off. Would you ever do a move like that? I mean, city-states, of course, maybe. You don't need to steal a worker from city-states, but it often helps.
I would consider doing it because it's usually very easy to get peace treaty very soon after declaring war. And Byzantium is not a civilization that's very aggressive. And it usually doesn't build a big army early on. I would actually consider doing that.
Well, hey.
It might be worth waiting until that worker is in slightly better position, maybe.
Like on the east side, going towards the stone?
Yeah.
I mean, she might have more defenses by then.
You could steal the one on the left and then move it like northeast. It would take one shot from Adrianople, and then he could run away.
But that one would be also closer to the warrior, which makes it much more likely that I'll get shot and then the warrior might kill my scout.
Right, you can run away with the other one too, I suppose.
Yeah, I think I'd end up getting to the same location.
It's not really something I do, because you rarely get a situation like this, where you get the chance to steal a worker from the AI.
I've never seen this before.
But the thing is, it's true that if you steal a worker from the AI very early on, it can totally cripple their growth.
Well, let's give it a try.
I did have 1 or 2 games where I declared war on AI very early on, not because I wanted to take a city, but because I wanted to cripple their growth.
Now, is there any reason I need to keep him on here? My scout. I don't think so. Well, he might get snagged back. All right, I'll end there. I discovered Lake Victoria, but it's going to be taken by a city-state, which makes me very sad. It's probably my favorite wonder.
Yeah, yeah. Lake Victoria is easily one of the best natural wonders. Where is it?
It's just south of Adrianople, by the barbarian encampment. And I don't know what city-state that is. I'm going to find out in a second here.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Antananarivo? Have I ever seen these guys before?
Yeah, I see it. I thought that's a coast.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought at first too, and then I noticed a little pop-up in my queue.
You know, for a wonder like that, it might even be worth considering stealing it with a citadel later on.
Oh, yeah.
It would piss off the city-state, but it's one of the best natural wonders in the game by far.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I would definitely consider.
Would you ever consider just taking over the city-state?
Probably not. I almost never take over city-states. I actually don't think I ever took a city-state on Deity. Unless it was from the AI that already took over earlier. But I almost never do it, because if you are too aggressive towards city-states, then first of all, you will get negative diplomatic modifiers with almost everyone. And second, if you are too aggressive, you will actually get lower resting point with all the city-states in the game. But the main reason why I don't is because you get diplomatic penalties.
Yeah, the warmonger.
And if you have some civilizations, some AIs that love city-states, like, let's say, Bramham, whatever his name is, or Ramham Trollface, as I call him, he will be really pissed off.
I don't know who you're talking about.
The Siam leader.
Oh, yeah, alright.
Yeah, that guy. He loves city-states. If you attack a city-state that he's protecting, he will hate you for the rest of the game.
Really?
He will really hate your guts if you attack a city-state
He
that
does
he's
get
protecting.
the bonus of friendly city-states. I've never played a game, Siam.
He usually tends to, like, pledge protection to all the city-states. And when I steal a worker from a city-state early on, I only ever do it if no AI pledged to protect that city-state. If an AI pledged to protect, it's not worth taking the diplomatic penalty, from what I find.
There's no way to check that without hitting the declare war button and then hitting no afterwards, is there?
Yeah, that's how I check it at least.
Yeah. It's very frustrating.
But some AIs care about that more than others. And if you attack a city-state that's protected by a city-state lover, he will really hate your guts. I ruined my relations with some AIs because of that in some of my games. And diplomatic modifiers are actually so important.
And they stick around forever.
Yeah, and one of the main questions that I often get on high-level games is how to avoid AI declaring war on you. Because that's one of the things that people have a lot of problems with. They get attacked by one of the aggressive AIs early on. They get a carpet of doom of early units, and they get demolished. That's one of the most common questions that I get.
So I tend to bribe them to try to attack someone else.
Yeah, that's a very good way to do it, but a very important thing is to avoid negative diplomatic modifiers. So, for example, settling towards AIs is usually fine on lower difficulty levels, but on Deity, it's a big no unless you are ready for war. If you settle close to the AI in the early game, it's very likely that he will attack you, because you will get a fairly significant diplomatic modifier. I usually keep an eye on all my modifiers with my neighbors.
Right, that makes sense.
So if you see that they want your land, for example, you pretty much have to expect that they might want to attack you. That's definitely something to keep an eye on. If they start wanting your land, that's a good indication that they might attack you at some point. So then it's a good idea to keep them at war with others.
Their relationship. And that bullet point, does that show up in vanilla? You don't need the modification for this, the better AI?
Yeah, it shows without mods.
Yeah. Well, I got my worker back safely. There's actually an opportunity to steal a second one, but I'm pretty sure it would have never made it back alive.
But even stealing one worker is actually a big deal here. You will pretty much cripple Theodora by doing this. Because the AI doesn't really deal very well with a situation like this, if you steal a worker or two at this point of the game.
Plus, the AI will often respond to a declaration of war by changing its production to more units, which can slow down its economy.
Exactly. It's actually a very good way to completely shut down an AI.
Alright, so at this point, I've finished that worker. Although maybe, should I have switched to Shrine before finishing the worker? Like as soon as it became available?
Yeah, I often do that. I actually didn't switch mine. But
yeah, I realized after the fact, like, wait a minute, hold on. Normally, as soon as I got pottery, I think I would have gone to Shrine.
Yeah.
Oops.
I'm still recruiting my worker. I didn't actually build a shrine, but it's usually a good idea to build shrine as soon as you finish pottery, because it's actually quite possible to miss out not only on the religion, but even on the pantheon on deity. Because once one civilization in the game enhances the religion, you can't get a pantheon anymore.
Oh, that's interesting.
And
I don't
that
think I've
actually
ever seen that.
can happen. That actually happened to me in the past. So it's a good idea to secure that pantheon.
Now, I feel like at the higher difficulties, it's quite hard to compete in terms of religions. How high do you prioritize getting a religion? I'm sure, certainly if you found one, you probably pick up Tithe, because that tends to be what most people pick up.
Yeah, if I can see that I can get a religion without too many sacrifices, I usually go for it, but I don't obsess over it too much, because even if you don't get a religion, you can just adopt someone else's religion.
Yeah, and you'll get some of the bonuses.
Yeah, and this can actually be a good strategy, because that way you can get a reformation belief, which is something you will never get on deity, because piety is just awful on deity. You'll never want to go for piety finisher ever. So the only way to get reformation beliefs is to adopt AI's religion. Then you can get something like Jesuit education, which AI loves.
Which increases your tech output.
Which allows you to faith by universities, public schools, and research labs.
There we go, okay.
So that's pretty awesome.
And that's one of the reasons you want to keep your faith output high, even if it's not your religion, especially if it's one. Ideally, you get a religion that lets you build things like monasteries, cathedrals, pagodas, or faith by things that are important.
And even
military units is nice.
Yeah, and even if I don't get a religion that would allow me to faith by something useful, it's still a good idea to get some faith from temples and things like that, because assuming you're going for tradition, you can faith by great engineers. And then you can also faith by great scientists late into the game with Rationalist finisher. So having faith is never a bad idea. It shouldn't be top priority, but I usually try to get some decent faith for that reason. And faith buying great engineers is one of the better ways to get some wonders. Because on deity it's really hard to get wonders through the entire game, not just in the early game. And there are some wonders that you generally really want to get.
Like which ones do you prioritize as like must have? And does it depend on the victory condition?
Yeah, one of the wonders that's really good to get on deity is the Porcelain Tower. Because one of the best ways to catch up to the AI is through research agreements. And the Porcelain Tower works really nice with that. So that's one of the wonders that I tend to get. And I often get it through a great engineer. You can sometimes hard build it, because it requires rationalism opener, which is something AI often doesn't get at all. But
really?
Yeah, AI actually hates rationalism for some reason. It's really strange. So like the Porcelain Tower is actually pretty easy to get now. That used to not be the case, because back before Brave New World it didn't require rationalism opener. But after Brave New World, it's one of the easier wonders to get on deity. It doesn't mean the AI never goes for rationalism. It does sometimes.
I find that the AI surprisingly doesn't tend to pick up... well, I guess because it doesn't go at Liberty very often. The pyramids is often available. Not always, depends on what they've picked. And usually you can't see all the AI, so you don't know what all their situation is. Yeah,
I'm actually not a fan of the pyramids. I find that it's a pretty bad wonder, because... what are you really getting from it? You are getting 2 workers and slightly faster improvements.
Well, the price of producing a pyramid is only slightly more than 2 workers. And but that's I don't usually do
but you have
the
to commit.
Second build.
Yeah, this is true, but you have to actually commit to building that. And you can often steal workers instead. You can even buy worker for gold, which is something I sometimes do.
Yeah, they're what, 300 or so? I've often done that.
Yeah, that's 310 gold, which is pretty cheap. So I think we should look into finishing this part soon.
Oh yeah, actually we should probably put a cut in here. So how about we do that now?
Yeah, let's do that now then.
And we'll come back next time for some more Civ 5.
That was a pretty long first episode, so I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time.
We're awesome. See you folks, bye-bye.